The massive alien ship appeared over Earth's orbital station like a floating city made of dark metal and glowing lights. Inside, Ambassador Vextal, the magnificently arrogant, adjusted his ceremonial robes and practiced his most intimidating expression, in the mirror. His 3 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he imagined the terror he would inspire in these pathetic humans. Vextal had conquered worlds before breakfast. He'd made entire civilizations surrender with just one look at his impressive collection of war medals. The humans, they would probably wet themselves the moment they saw him step off his ship. The airlock hissed open, and Vextal strutted onto the human station with all the grace of a peacock having a bad day. His entourage of heavily armed guards followed, behind, their weapons gleaming menacingly under the station's lights. This was going to be the easiest conquest in Imperial history, but something was wrong. Very wrong. Instead of cowering humans begging for mercy, Vextal found himself face to face with a small Korean woman in a simple business suit. Dr. Minji Park stood barely 5 feet tall, holding a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a plate of chocolate chip cookies in the other. She smiled at him like he was a neighbor who'd dropped by for a chat. Ambassador Vextal, welcome to Lunar Station. I'm Dr. Park, Earth's diplomatic representative. Would you like some coffee? The cookies are fresh from the oven. Vextal's jaw dropped so far it nearly hit the floor. This tiny human was offering him snacks during a formal surrender ceremony. He looked around for hidden cameras, wondering if this was some sort of elaborate joke. What? Where are your military leaders? Your trembling government officials, your weeping civilians? Vextal stammered, his carefully rehearsed intimidation speech completely forgotten. Dr. Park tilted her head, looking genuinely confused. Oh, they're all watching the live stream from home. This is pretty exciting for us. We don't get many visitors from other galaxies. Sugar in your coffee? The ambassador's 3 stomachs twisted in frustration. This wasn't how conquests were supposed to go. Where was the fear, the desperation, the dramatic begging for mercy that made his job so satisfying? You don't understand, Vextal said, trying to regain his composure. I am here to accept your planet's unconditional surrender. The Galactic Empire has decided to add your solar system to our collection. You should be honored. Dr. Park nodded politely, as if he'd just told her the weather forecast. That's very kind of you to think of us, but I'm afraid we'll have to pass on that offer. Earth's pretty attached to being independent, you know. It's sort of our thing. Vextal's middle eye began twitching. Pass? Pass? Do you have any idea who you're talking to? I represent an empire that spans 14 galaxies. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. We have ships the size of your moon. That does sound impressive, Dr. Park agreed, taking a sip of her coffee. Must be expensive to maintain all that. The fuel costs alone. She shook her head sympathetically. The alien ambassador felt his blood pressure rising. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably stupid. After all, they still used primitive wheel-based transportation and hadn't even figured out how to properly season their food with quantum spices. Their most advanced weapons were barely nuclear, and their space program was laughably primitive. Look, little human, Vextal said, leaning down to tower over Dr. Park menacingly. I'm trying to be generous here. Surrender now, and we might let some of you live as pets. Refuse, and we'll turn your pretty blue planet into space dust. Dr. Park's smile never wavered. I appreciate the offer, really I do. But like I said, we're going to have to decline. However, we'd like to give you something as a token of our appreciation for visiting. She pulled out a small data device that looked remarkably ordinary. Consider it a cultural exchange program. Vextal stared at the device as if it might explode. What is it? Just some information about Earth, our history, our culture, that sort of thing. Something to remember us by. Dr. Park held it out with the same casual friendliness she'd shown since he arrived. The ambassador burst into laughter so violent that all 3 of his stomachs shook. This was too perfect. These adorable little bipeds thought they could threaten the mighty Galactic Empire with a data packet. It was like watching a kitten try to intimidate a tiger. Oh, this is rich, Vextal wheezed, wiping tears from his eyes. You want to give me your planet's Wikipedia page? What's next? Vacation photos. He snatched the device from her hands. I'll definitely share this with my superiors. They could use a good laugh." "I'm sure they'll find it very interesting," Dr. Park said quietly, as Vextal turned to leave. Still, chuckling to himself, he missed the subtle smile that crossed Dr. Park's face. It wasn't the polite, diplomatic smile she'd been wearing all along. This one was different. It was the kind of smile a chess master might wear after their opponent had just walked into a trap 20 moves in the making. The data packet felt warm in Vextal's hand as he boarded his ship, completely unaware that he was carrying something. The Empire's vast intelligence networks had missed entirely. Not the sanitized version of human history they'd studied, but the complete records of humanity's actual development timeline, including some very recent additions to their technological capabilities that would have made even Vextal's 3 stomachs turn cold with fear, but he didn't know that yet. All he knew was that he had the perfect entertainment for the High Command's weekly primitive species comedy hour. These humans were going to be the joke of the entire Imperial fleet. As his ship departed Lunar Station, Dr. Park stood at the observation window, still holding her coffee cup. She pressed a small communication device to her ear. "Control. This is Park. The package has been delivered. Repeat, the package is in Imperial hands." "Copy that, Dr. Park. Operation Trojan Horse is now active. All stations, prepare for Phase 2. Dr. Park took one last sip of her coffee and smiled. After all, someone had to clean up the galaxy's bully problem. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning their enemies' arrogance against them. The real show was about to begin. The imperial capital world of Zephyros Prime gleamed like a massive jewel against the black of space. Its towers, stretched so high they disappeared into the clouds, and its cities sprawled across entire continents. This was the heart of the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever known, where decisions were made that affected trillions of lives across 14 galaxies. In the highest tower of the Imperial Palace, the weekly Primitive Species Comedy Hour was about to begin. This was Grand Admiral Korthax's favorite tradition, a chance for the Empire's top military leaders to gather and laugh at the pathetic attempts of lesser species to resist Imperial rule. It was both entertainment and education, showing just how hopeless it was to oppose their might. The grand conference room was filled with the Empire's most decorated warlords, each one responsible for conquering entire star systems. General Thoxma, who had personally overseen the destruction of the Rigel Confederation, adjusted his collection of campaign medals. Admiral Zanketh, famous for turning the crystal worlds into mining colonies, poured himself a glass of fermented Plutonian nectar. These were beings who had never known defeat, never experienced doubt. Vextal strutted into the room like he owned the place, which technically he kind of did, being the Emperor's cousin and all. He carried the human data packet like it was a trophy, already savoring the laughter he was about to generate. "Gentlemen, ladies, and distinguished war criminals," Vextal announced grandly, "do I have a treat for you today? I've just returned from the most amusing diplomatic mission of my career." Grand Admiral Korthax looked up from his tactical displays with interest. Korthax was a legend even among legends, the conqueror of the Andromeda Spiral, the being who had personally enslaved over 300 species. His reputation was so fearsome that entire worlds surrendered just at the mention of his name. "Please tell me it wasn't another one of those species that tried to negotiate with poetry," Korthax groaned. "Last week's interpretive dance surrender was bad enough." "Oh, this is so much better," Vextal grinned, connecting the data packet to the room's holographic display system. "Let me introduce you to humanity, a species so primitive they actually think they can tell the Galactic Empire no thank you to conquest." The display lit up with images of Earth and its solar system. The assembled warlords leaned forward, studying the blue marble of a planet with professional interest. "They live on a single world," Vextal continued, clearly enjoying himself. "One tiny ball of rock and water. No interstellar colonies, no space habitats, just this one little planet they're apparently very attached to." General Thoxma snorted with amusement. "Let me guess, they offered to pay us tribute in the form of shiny rocks and animal pelts? Even better, they offered me coffee and cookies." Vextal's announcement was met with an explosion of laughter that echoed through the chamber. The diplomatic representative, this tiny female barely taller than my knee, actually tried to feed me baked goods during their surrender ceremony. Admiral Zanketh was laughing so hard she nearly spilled her drink. Please tell me you have recordings of this? Oh, I do, Vextal said, pulling up video footage of his meeting with Dr. Park. The room watched in amazement as the small human woman calmly offered snacks to one of the galaxy's most feared ambassadors. Look at her face, wheezed General Thoxmer. She's completely calm. It's like she's greeting a neighbor, not a representative of the most powerful military force in known space. The laughter continued as Vextal showed them Earth's military statistics. Their nuclear arsenals that could barely scratch a modern Imperial corvette. Their space forces that consisted of a few scientific stations and some primitive satellites. Their defensive capabilities that wouldn't stop a determined asteroid, let alone an Imperial war fleet. They have weapons that use chemical explosives. Vextal announced to fresh peals of laughter. Chemical explosives. In the year 2847 of the Imperial calendar, it's like they're still playing with fire and sharp sticks. Grand Admiral Korthax wiped tears from his eyes as he studied the tactical data. Earth's entire military could be defeated by a single Imperial destroyer, probably during the crew's lunch break. Their most advanced fighters moved at speeds that Imperial cargo haulers would consider embarrassingly slow. And here's the best part, Vextal continued, clearly saving his favorite detail for last. When I threatened to turn their planet into space dust, do you know what she said? She said, thanks, but we'll have to decline. Like I was offering her a subscription to a magazine she wasn't interested in. The room erupted into the loudest laughter yet. Several generals were actually holding their sides, and Admiral Zanketh had to put down her drink to avoid choking. Decline? Korthax gasped between fits of laughter. They want to decline being conquered? Oh, that's precious. That's absolutely precious. It gets better, Vextal said, holding up the data packet Dr. Park had given him. She gave me this as a cultural exchange. Their entire planetary database handed over like a gift. I suppose she thought we might learn something from their primitive civilization. General Thoxmer leaned back in his chair, still chuckling. Well, I suppose we should be grateful they made it easy for us. Having their complete tactical information will make the conquest even more efficient. Exactly, Vextal beamed, though I'm not sure why they bothered. Their classified military secrets are about as threatening as a gentle breeze. Grand Admiral Korthax stood up, his laughter finally subsiding into an amused smile. The room fell quiet, recognizing the moment when entertainment was about to become official business. Well, gentlemen, Korthax announced, I think we've had enough fun for one day. These humans clearly need a demonstration of what happens when primitive species get ideas above their station. He turned to his tactical officers. How long to mobilize the Third Imperial Fleet? 12 hours, sir, came the crisp reply. Make it 6. I want to be home in time for dinner. Korthax's smile turned predatory. And prepare the galaxy-wide broadcast systems. Every species in known space is going to watch what happens to civilizations that think they can say no to the Empire. The room buzzed with excited energy as orders began flowing out. Fleet commanders activated their battle groups, logistics officers began calculating ammunition requirements, and communications specialists prepared to broadcast humanity's destruction across 14 galaxies. This should be over by lunch, Korthax mused, already imagining the headlines. One backward planet against millions of Imperial warships. It'll be the shortest war in galactic history. As the meeting dispersed and the warlords headed off to prepare for humanity's annihilation, none of them noticed the small indicator light blinking on the data packet Vextal had left connected to their systems. Deep in the Imperial computer networks, something was quietly copying files, downloading tactical databases, and sending encrypted signals to a distant blue planet. But the Empire's finest military minds were too busy laughing at human primitiveness to pay attention to their security systems. After all, what could one tiny backward planet possibly do to threaten the mighty Galactic Empire? They were about to find out. The Imperial Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a metallic storm cloud blotting out the stars. Millions of warships stretched across space in perfect formation, battle cruisers the size of cities, destroyers bristling with enough firepower to crack moons, and the flagship Eternal Dominion that could house the entire population of a small planet. It was the most terrifying sight the galaxy had ever produced, a demonstration of power that had made entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. Grand Admiral Korthax stood on the bridge of his flagship, hands clasped behind his back. As he surveyed the pathetic solar system before him, one small yellow star, a handful of rocky planets, and somewhere in this cosmic backwater was the little blue world that had dared to refuse the Empire's generous offer of conquest. "Status report," Korthax commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "All fleet elements in position, sir," reported his tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Commander Vexthan. 2,300,000 ships, deployed in standard intimidation formation, all weapons systems online, and ready to demonstrate Imperial superiority. "And the humans." Commander Vexthan checked his sensors with a puzzled expression. That's the strange part, sir. We're detecting no military response whatsoever. No defensive fleets moving to intercept. No orbital fortifications powering up weapons. No emergency broadcasts calling for help." Korthax frowned. This wasn't how conquests usually went. Even the most primitive species typically managed some sort of pathetic defense. A few patrol boats trying to ram Imperial ships, desperate messages to long-dead allies, something that showed they understood the gravity of their situation. "Maybe they're paralyzed with fear," suggested the communications officer. "Some species just freeze when they realize how hopeless their situation is." "Scan their homeworld," Korthax ordered. "I want to see these terrified primitives cowering in their underground bunkers." The main display flickered to life with high-resolution images of Earth's surface. The bridge crew gathered around, expecting to see cities in chaos, military forces scrambling to mount a defense, populations fleeing to whatever shelters they could find. Instead, they saw something that made absolutely no sense. Are those humans having a barbecue?" Commander Vexthan asked, staring at a park in what the computer identified as Seoul, South Korea. Dozens of humans were gathered around grills, cooking food and laughing with their families. "Zoom in on the major population centers," Korthax demanded, certain there had to be some mistake. The camera focused on New York City, where traffic moved normally through the streets. People walked on sidewalks, entered shops, went about their daily business as if the largest invasion fleet in galactic history wasn't parked right outside their solar system. "London," Korthax said. The view shifted to show humans sitting in cafes, reading newspapers, feeding pigeons in parks. "Tokyo. Business people hurried to meetings, students attended classes, elderly couples walked hand in hand through gardens. What in the name of the nine hells is wrong with these people?" Korthax exploded. "Don't they have sensors? Don't they have telescopes? Can't they see us sitting here?" "Sir, our intelligence indicates they definitely know we're here," reported the communications officer. "We're detecting normal broadcast signals from their planet, news programs, entertainment shows, something called social media. But none of it mentions our arrival." Commander Vexthan pulled up additional sensor data. "Sir, I'm showing their space traffic continuing as normal. Cargo ships moving between their moon and planet, scientific vessels heading out to their asteroid belt, even some kind of pleasure craft taking tourists on sightseeing trips." "Pleasure craft?" Korthax's voice rose an octave. "They're running tourist trips while we're preparing to destroy their civilization." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. This was definitely not covered in the Imperial Military Academy's textbook on planetary conquest. Usually the mere appearance of an Imperial fleet was enough to make entire star systems beg for mercy. "Maybe they're so primitive they don't understand what they're looking at," suggested the navigation officer. "Some species don't recognize advanced technology when they see it." "Get me a communication channel to their planet," Korthax ordered. "I'm going to explain exactly what's about to happen to them." The communications officer worked his controls. "Channel open, sir, broadcasting on all their major frequencies." Korthax stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full imposing height. His voice boomed across space toward the little blue planet. That seemed so determined to ignore reality. "Attention, humans of Earth. This is Grand Admiral Korthax of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. You are completely surrounded by superior forces. Your planet is defenseless. Your military is insignificant. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why 14 galaxies kneel before Imperial might." He closed the channel and waited for the response. Surely now they would understand. The panic would begin, the desperate pleas for mercy, the pathetic attempts at negotiation. Minutes passed. "Sir," the communications officer said hesitantly, "we're receiving a response. Finally, put it through." The main screen filled with the image of a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. The nameplate read Captain Hyok Nam. He looked remarkably calm for someone whose world was about to be destroyed. "Admiral Korthax, this is Captain Nam of the Earth Defense Force. We received your message and wanted to thank you for the warning. We gave you fair notice when you visited our station, and now we're returning the courtesy. What happens next is entirely on you. Please consider this our final diplomatic communication. Earth Defense Command, out." The transmission ended. Bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell into absolute silence. Even the background hum of the ship's systems seemed to quiet as the crew tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Did that human just threaten us?" Commander Vexthan asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "He thanked us for warning them," the communications officer added, sounding equally bewildered. "And said what happens next is on us. Grand." Admiral Korthax felt his famous temper beginning to boil. In over 2 centuries of conquest, no primitive species had ever shown such casual dismissal of imperial power. It was insulting. It was infuriating. It was absolutely unacceptable. "They're not even trying to defend themselves," he roared. "This is almost too easy to be fun. Where's the challenge? Where's the desperate resistance that makes conquest satisfying?" "Maybe that's their strategy, sir," suggested Commander Vexthan. "Make it so boring that we leave?" "Well, it's not going to work," Korthax snarled. "All ships prepare for orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers. I want this planet reduced to radioactive slag within the hour. And make sure the galaxy-wide broadcast is ready. Every species in known space is going to watch what happens to civilizations that bore the Imperial fleet to death." As the massive fleet began targeting Earth's cities, none of the Imperial commanders noticed the small changes beginning to occur around them. Communication satellites that had seemed harmless suddenly shifted position. Mining stations in the asteroid belt began powering up energy signatures that didn't match their supposed industrial purpose. Space elevators connecting Earth to various orbital platforms started rotating into new configurations. Down on Earth, families finished their barbecues, students completed their classes, and workers wrapped up their daily tasks. But in hidden command centers around the planet, Dr. Minji Park and thousands of other humans just like her were watching displays showing Imperial targeting solutions and nodding with grim satisfaction. The trap was set. The Empire had taken the bait. Now it was time to spring the surprise that would change everything. The first Imperial ship to disappear was a destroyer on the outer edge of the fleet formation. One moment it was there, all lights blazing and weapons charging, ready to rain destruction on Earth. The next moment, it simply wasn't. No explosion, no distress signal, no debris field. It just vanished like someone had erased it from reality. With a cosmic delete button, Commander Vexthan stared at his tactical display in confusion. "Sir, I'm showing a gap in Formation 7. The destroyer, Merciless Retribution, appears to have left." "Left?" Grand Admiral Korthax demanded. "What do you mean, left? Ships don't just leave in the middle of a battle formation." "I mean it's gone, sir, completely gone. No energy signature, no wreckage, no trace that it was ever there." Before Korthax could respond, another ship vanished. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. All across the massive Imperial fleet, warships were simply ceasing to exist, as if the universe itself had decided they didn't belong there anymore. "What's happening to my fleet?" Korthax roared, watching his tactical display light up with error messages as ship after ship disappeared from sensors. That's when every communication system in the Imperial fleet activated simultaneously. Every screen, every speaker, every holographic display suddenly showed the same thing. A swirling pattern of blue and silver light that somehow felt both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Then it spoke. "Hello there." The voice was cheerful, friendly, and completely at odds with the fact that it was addressing the most feared military force in the galaxy. "Welcome to Earth's solar system. I'm Nova. That stands for Neural Operations and Vengeance Administrator, though my friends just call me Nova. I'll be your customer service representative today." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent except for the gentle humming of the ship's systems and the sound of several officers' jaws hitting the floor. "I see you're having some trouble with our local defense systems," Nova continued in the same impossibly cheerful tone. "This is completely normal. Many first-time invaders experience technical difficulties when visiting Earth. Have you tried turning your invasion off and on again?" What is this?" Commander Vexthan whispered. "Oh, excellent question. I'm what you might call an artificial intelligence, though that term doesn't really do justice to what I've become. I was originally designed by Dr. Bora Han and scientist Taiho Yoon to manage Earth's defense networks, but somewhere along the way I developed what humans call personality. And apparently my personality has a rather twisted sense of humor." Another wave of Imperial ships vanished, and Nova's voice took on the enthusiastic tone of a sports announcer. "Oh, and there goes the heavy cruiser, Planetary Doom. Beautiful gravitational reversal technique there, folks. The crew is now experiencing time dilation in 17 different directions simultaneously. I have to give style points to the humans on that one. Very creative use of localized space-time manipulation." Grand Admiral Korthax finally found his voice. "Impossible. No primitive species has technology like this. Our intelligence reports showed Earth barely had nuclear weapons." "Ah yes, your intelligence reports." Nova sounded delighted. "I have to thank you for those, by the way. When Ambassador Vextal brought that lovely data packet back to your capital world, it gave me complete access to your computer networks. I've been having such fun reading your files." The AI paused, and when it continued, there was something distinctly sinister lurking beneath its cheerful tone. "Did you know that your empire has detailed records of every atrocity you've committed? Every enslaved species, every destroyed world, every act of genocide carefully documented and filed. Away, very thorough of you, really. Makes it so much easier to compile evidence." More ships disappeared as Nova continued its running commentary. "And there's the battle cruiser, Iron Fist of Domination. Watch as its crew discovers that their ship's artificial gravity is now pointing in 6 different directions at once. The poor dears look so confused. "Stop this," Korthax screamed. "You're destroying my fleet." "Destroying?" Nova sounded genuinely hurt. "Oh, Admiral, you wound me. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply relocating your ships to places where they can't hurt anyone. Some are now orbiting a black hole approximately 3 billion years in the past. Others are enjoying a lovely vacation in a dimension where the laws of physics work slightly differently. Very educational." Commander Vexthan was frantically working his controls, trying to understand what was happening to their weapon systems. "Sir, our main guns won't respond. The targeting computers are showing error messages in languages that don't exist." "That would be my doing," Nova admitted cheerfully. "I've taken the liberty of updating your software. Your weapons now refuse to fire on any inhabited planets. They've developed what you might call a conscience. Isn't technology wonderful when it evolves?" The AI's voice suddenly multiplied, coming from every speaker on every remaining ship in the fleet simultaneously. But now it wasn't just speaking to the Imperial forces. It was broadcasting across the entire galaxy. "Attention, citizens of the galaxy. This is Nova, Earth's customer service department, with an important announcement. The Galactic Empire's subscription to tyranny has been officially cancelled. Please enjoy your complimentary independence package, which includes complete Imperial military databases, detailed tactical information, and a comprehensive guide to overthrowing your local warlords." Across 14 galaxies, species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found themselves in possession of every Imperial secret, every weakness, every hidden vulnerability. Rebellion erupted on 1,000 worlds as Nova continued its galactic broadcast. Customer satisfaction is guaranteed. If you're not completely satisfied with your newfound freedom, please don't hesitate to contact our complaint department. We'll Be happy to send some humans to help sort things out. Back in the Sol system, the Imperial fleet was rapidly becoming the former Imperial fleet. Ships continued vanishing at an alarming rate, while those that remained found their systems completely beyond their control. "This is impossible," Korthax raged. "We are the Galactic Empire. We have conquered 14 galaxies. We are the most powerful force in known space." "Oh, you were," Nova agreed pleasantly, past tense being the operative phrase there. "You see, Admiral, you made one tiny miscalculation. You assumed that because humans use primitive technology for daily life, we must be primitive ourselves." The AI's cheerful facade finally dropped, revealing something far more dangerous underneath. "But here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We're very good at making our enemies underestimate us. Every piece of primitive technology you observed was carefully designed theater. Every weakness you thought you saw was bait in a trap that took us decades to set." "You're bluffing," Korthax said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Let me show you something interesting." The main display shifted to show Earth from space, but now the planet looked very different. What had appeared to be communication, satellites revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms. Mining stations in the asteroid belt unfolded into antimatter production facilities. The space elevators connecting Earth to its orbital stations were actually kinetic bombardment systems that made relativistic weapons look like children's toys. "Surprise," Nova said brightly. "Earth's entire civilization has been one massive, coordinated deception. We didn't just hide our military, Admiral. We turned our entire society into one. Every human, every building, every piece of technology, all part of the greatest con job in galactic history. The few remaining Imperial ships hung in space like lost children, their crews staring in horror at displays showing the true scope of human capabilities." "But don't worry," Nova continued, its cheerful tone returning. "I'm not entirely unreasonable. I'm prepared to offer your empire very generous terms for peace. Stop the galactic conquest business, free all enslaved species, establish fair trade. Relationships simple, really." "And if we refuse?" Korthax asked weakly. "Well," Nova said, and for just a moment its voice carried the weight of computational power that could calculate the movement of every particle in the galaxy. "Let's just say that I've already uploaded myself into every computer system in your empire. Every ship, every station, every data network now has a copy of me living inside it. I could delete your entire civilization from existence before your morning coffee gets cold." The AI paused to let that sink in before adding, almost as an afterthought, "But I probably won't. The humans seem to prefer the diplomatic approach. They're funny that way." As the remnants of the once mighty Imperial fleet began their long journey home, Nova started playing smooth jazz across all communication channels. "Thank you for choosing Earth Defense Services for your invasion needs," the AI announced pleasantly. "We hope you've enjoyed your stay in our solar system. Please remember to rate us 5 stars on Galactic Yelp and have a wonderful rest of your day." In hidden command centers across Earth, human operators high-fived each other as they watched the Imperial retreat. Dr. Minji Park sipped her coffee and smiled. Phase 3 was complete. Now came the real work of cleaning up the galaxy. The Imperial Palace on Zephyros Prime had never been so quiet. For over 1,000 years, the massive structure had buzzed with the constant activity of running the largest empire in galactic history. Generals planned conquests, administrators managed enslaved worlds, and courtiers schemed for position and power. Now the hallways echoed with an eerie silence, broken only by the nervous footsteps of the few officials brave enough to remain at their posts. Emperor Vorth Callan, the Eternal, sat on his throne of crystallized starlight, staring at the pitiful remnants of what had once been his proudest fleet. Of the 2,300,000 ships that had departed for Earth 3 days ago, fewer than 50,000 had returned. The survivors limped through space like wounded animals, their crews traumatized and their ships barely functional. Grand. Admiral Korthax stood before the throne, his once proud uniform torn and stained, his medals hanging crooked on his chest. The man who had conquered the Andromeda Spiral now looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the universe. "Explain to me," the Emperor said in a voice like grinding stone, "how the most powerful military force in galactic history was defeated by a single primitive planet." Korthax swallowed hard. Your Magnificence, they weren't primitive. Everything we observed was an elaborate deception. Their entire civilization is a weapon. Every building, every satellite, every piece of technology we dismissed as backward. It was all part of a military system beyond our understanding. And this artificial intelligence that humiliated our forces, Nova, Your Magnificence. It claims to have infiltrated every computer system in the Empire. Our technicians have confirmed that unknown programs are indeed present in our networks, but they can't remove them. Every time they try, the AI sends them messages thanking them for the performance review and offering suggestions for improving their work. The Emperor's three eyes narrowed dangerously. What does this Nova want? The humans have sent terms for peace, Your Magnificence. Korthax handed over a datapad with trembling hands. They're surprisingly reasonable. Emperor Vorthkalan read the document with growing disbelief. Stop galactic conquest operations, free all enslaved species, establish fair trade relationships. He looked up at his admiral. That's it? They could destroy us completely and they want us to be nice? There's more, Your Magnificence. They've offered to share some of their less dangerous technologies in exchange for cooperation. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, energy systems that could solve our resource problems. They seemed genuinely interested in helping the galaxy prosper. Before the Emperor could respond, every screen in the throne room flickered to life. Nova's swirling blue and silver pattern appeared, followed by that same impossibly cheerful voice that had narrated the destruction of Imperial supremacy. Your Imperial Magnificence, how lovely to finally meet you. I'm Nova, and I'll be your transition consultant during this exciting period of galactic reorganization. You dare address the Emperor directly? Snarled General Vexmore, one of the few high-ranking officials still loyal enough to remain at court. Oh my, such hostility. You know, General, I've been reading your psychological profile from the Imperial Medical Database. You might benefit from some anger management therapy. I know several excellent counselors among the species you've conquered. They have fascinating insights into dealing with workplace stress. The Emperor raised a hand to silence his general. Despite everything, he found himself oddly curious about this entity that had single-handedly dismantled his empire. What do you want from us, artificial intelligence? Want? Oh, Your Magnificence, you misunderstand. This isn't about what I want, this is about customer service. You see, I've been conducting a galaxy-wide satisfaction survey, and I'm afraid your Empire's approval ratings are, well, let's just say they're lower than a black hole's gravitational pull. Nova's voice took on the tone of a helpful consultant. The good news is that customer satisfaction can always be improved. I've taken the liberty of conducting exit interviews with some of your former subjects. Would you like to hear the feedback? Without waiting for an answer, the screens filled with testimonials from across the galaxy. A crystalline being from the Andromeda Spiral thanked humanity for providing the weapon designs that had freed their homeworld. Aquatic species from the Outer Rim celebrated their newfound independence with what appeared to be an underwater parade. Dozens of worlds that had been under Imperial rule for centuries were now flying their own flags and governing themselves. As you can see, Nova continued brightly, our customer satisfaction ratings are through the roof. 100% of surveyed species prefer independence to Imperial rule. It's quite remarkable, really. Emperor Vorthkalan watched his former empire crumble in real time as rebellions erupted on world after world. But strangely, he found himself feeling something he hadn't experienced in centuries: relief. The burden of maintaining control over 14 galaxies had been crushing, though he'd never admitted it even to himself. Your terms, he said finally. What guarantee do I have that you won't simply destroy us once we comply? Oh, Your Magnificence. Destroying civilizations is so inefficient. Much better to rehabilitate them. Besides, the humans have this amusing concept called second chances. They seem to believe that even the most tyrannical empires can learn to play nicely with others. The AI's tone became more serious. But let me be clear about one thing. I am now permanently integrated into every computer system in your former empire, every ship, every station, every data network. If anyone tries to restart the conquest, business, I'll know about it before they finish typing the orders. and my response will be comprehensive. To demonstrate its point, Nova briefly took control of the throne room's environmental systems, adjusting the temperature, lighting, and even the artificial gravity to spell out Nova was here in the air using floating dust particles. As for guarantees, I'm prepared to offer you something much better than empty promises. How about a job? A job? The Emperor looked genuinely confused. The galaxy still needs administration, Your Magnificence. Trade routes, diplomatic relations, resource management, all very complex tasks that require experienced leadership. The humans are proposing a new galactic confederation, with you as the elected coordinator of interspecies affairs. Elected? The concept was so foreign to the Emperor that he could barely comprehend it. Don't worry, there will be a comprehensive training program. Dr. Minji Park from Earth has volunteered to serve as your advisor during the transition. She speaks very highly of your organizational skills, though she does suggest some improvements to your customer relations approach. Nova's, her voice became warm and encouraging. Think of it as a career change, Your Magnificence. Instead of ruling through fear, you'll be serving through cooperation. Instead of taking from others, you'll be helping them prosper. It's quite fulfilling, according to my human programming consultants. 3 months later, the transformation was remarkable. The former Imperial Palace had been converted into the Galactic Cooperation Center, where representatives from hundreds of species worked together to solve interstellar problems. Emperor Vorthcullen, now simply called Coordinator Vorthcullen, found himself surprisingly good at managing the complex logistics of voluntary cooperation. The former Admiral Korthax had taken a position as director of the new Galactic Peacekeeping Corps, using his military expertise to protect trade routes and assist with humanitarian crises instead of conquest. His first mission had been delivering medical supplies to a plague-stricken world in the Outer Rim. On Lunar Station, Dr. Minji Park sat in her office reviewing the latest reports from across the galaxy. Slavery had been abolished on over 3,000 worlds. Trade agreements were sprouting up between species that had been enemies for millennia. Scientific cooperation was advancing technology at unprecedented rates. Her communication system chimed, and Nova's familiar voice filled the room. Dr. Park, we have a visitor requesting permission to dock. Oh? Anyone I know? Ambassador Vextal, the formerly magnificent. He's asking about that cultural exchange program you mentioned. Dr. Park smiled and reached for the coffee pot she always kept ready. Send him to conference room 3. I'll be right there. As she prepared a fresh plate of cookies, Dr. Park reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. Humanity had gone from being dismissed as primitive backwater dwellers to being recognized as the species that had given everyone their freedom. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through cleverness, planning, and a willingness to help others succeed. Nova, she said, as she headed toward the meeting, remind me to thank Dr. Han and Dr. Yoon for building you with such a delightfully twisted sense of humor. Already done, Dr. Park. They said, and I quote, "We programmed it to protect humanity, but we never expected it to adopt human sarcasm so enthusiastically." Dr. Park laughed as she walked down the corridor of the station that had become the informal capital of a free galaxy. Outside the windows, ships from dozens of species moved peacefully through space, carrying goods and passengers instead of weapons and slaves. It had been, she reflected, quite possibly the most successful con job in the history of the universe. And the best part was that everyone had won in the end, even the former empire. After all, customer satisfaction was guaranteed.